Live from Auburn Memorial Stadium in Auburn, Washington, this is Friday Night Football on the WIAA network from PlayOnSports.com. Tonight, an SPSL matchup between the Auburn Trojans and the Federal Way Eagles. And with that, we welcome you. Alongside Chris King, I'm Jason Schwartz. Big matchup tonight of two teams who combined have won 13 straight games. Federal Way comes in 7-0, first place in the SPSL South Division, while Auburn comes in at 6-1, winners of 6 in a row in second place in the SPSL North. And Federal Way, this is a team, they have been blowing out their opponents. The average scores in their games 50-16. And Chris, they have got some incredible talent on this roster, especially on the offensive side of the ball with the athleticism they have.
It's really a who's who, Jason, for Federal Way on offense. You could go through name after name after name, just the athleticism that they have, and it sets up for that explosive offense. As you mentioned, their scoring output this year, their lowest output was in week 1 when they scored 41 points. Besides that, they've been putting up big numbers on their way to their undefeated season here in week 8. Over for Auburn, some good athletes over for the Trojans, but the first name that stands out is Harold Lee, a guy who can score a touchdown just about any way. He can do it through the air, on the ground, an interception return, and also a kickoff and a punt return as well.
And he doesn't only stand out because of his great athleticism and ability, but also one thing you'll notice tonight, he wears bright green socks and cleats. And he's a guy who we talked with Coach Marr before the game. He said, look, he didn't even give him the number of Harold Lee. He said, guys, just look for those shoes and socks. They're pretty bright.
It has a nice highlighter glow to it.
Well, you take a look on the defensive side of the ball in Federal Way. Everyone talks about the offense and the numbers they put up. But defensively, they're an incredible team, too. A lot of the great offensive players play on the defensive side as well, but also the linebacker, Albert Havili, is a guy who's all over the field. We are going to step aside here as they get ready to play the national anthem here at Auburn Memorial Stadium. It is senior night and homecoming. So with all the pomp and circumstance, we kick it over to the PA. And there's the national anthem. The fans excited here as this is a big matchup for Auburn, too, on their home field with Federal Way coming in. And Federal Way, a really good shot this year, Chris, to possibly go and play in a state tournament.
No doubt about it, and it's interesting. Here we are in week 8, and 2 of their toughest challenges, if not their 2 toughest games that they'll have all year, are in these final 2 weeks. Tonight, a non-conference game with Auburn, but coming up in the final week of the regular season, they will have to travel to Curtis to take on that squad, and that will be a tough matchup for them. Curtis with only 1 loss this year.
Auburn, we mentioned it before, they lost their first game, but ever since the offense has really picked things up, and they're going to get the ball to start the game here. Harold Lee, he's going to be the one to return this kickoff. He's joined back there with Darnell Hagans. Meanwhile, the kicker for Federal Way, Kobe Craig, will get ready to send this away. Federal Way in the road white uniforms, Auburn in the home greens. And we're just about set. Friday Night Football here on the WIAA Network. Great matchup and great to have you with us. Craig getting his special teams ready. He never places the ball upright on the tee first. He always lays it to the side, talks to his teammates, and then goes back to place the ball up to get ready for the kickoff. Greg approaches the football, sends it away, and we are underway here from Auburn Memorial Stadium, and that will be Lee to take it in the end zone. That's a touchback, and with that, here comes the Auburn offense led by their junior quarterback, Briar Atkinson, the only junior on this offense. The starting lineup for Auburn, the offensive line, they go with Goff, White, Tinsley, Carson, and Raynon. Atkinson, the quarterback. The fullback, Waldo. Two running backs, Hagens and Lee. And the tight end duo of McNeely and Shelton, who we'll see a lot. This is a running offense. And we're going to see a lot of running both from Atkinson and from their running backs. Atkinson under center, nobody in the backfield as Waldo goes in motion. Here comes Lee across, and it's going to be Atkinson to take the ball in the first play. Doesn't get anything there. He's stopped by this Federal Way defense. So Federal Way, the defensive line, Havili, Tiuli, Afua. The linebackers, Havili, Warren, Rod Jones Jr., Fielder, and Tiumalu, the outside linebackers. Cornerbacks, Morris and McNeil, and the safety is Keenan Curran. 2nd and 12 from the 18-yard line. Clock running here as Atkinson gets ready to bring Auburn to the line.
And it was Delando Tucker leading the way, though there was many, many white jerseys surrounding them there. Not the way to start for Auburn. They rely on picking up 3-4 yards each play, keeping this drive going.
Again, it's going to be Lee in motion, and we've got movement here, and we'll see if it was Auburn's offensive line that drew the Federal Way defense off sides.
It was poor Jacob Waldo on the receiving end of that, getting blown up.
Jacob Waldo, that fullback. Interesting formation we've seen, and also we talk about this starting lineup for Auburn. They really don't go with any wide receivers in their starting lineup. The two tight ends that we mentioned just a moment ago, McNeely and Shelton, they're a big part of this offense.
And that's exactly what Coach Gordon Elliott said, talking to him earlier this week. He praised his tight ends. When I asked him, who are your studs? Who are your big guys? First he said Harold Lee, and that's obvious. And then it's not too often a coach names his two tight ends in that first breath when he's talking about his top players.
Well, also because with the running game, their blocking becomes a huge factor. By the way, that was an encroachment on the defense, so a 5-yard penalty will make it a 2nd and 7. Clock has run a minute off, 11 minutes to play here in this first quarter. Auburn and Federal Way. There's Lee in motion, and the ball will be given off. That is number 11, McNeely. The tight end we talked about is going to be stuffed on the far side. And again, we see the speed from the Federal Way defense as they track down McNeely.
The speed and just the strength as well. They were able to just push through right away, and nothing going for that offensive line for Auburn on those first two plays.
And a lot going on near the ball with the quarterback when they snap it. As far as players coming in motion, tough to see who actually is getting the ball. I wonder what it looks like for that Federal Way front line. Atkinson brings his offense to the line of scrimmage. 3rd and 5 from the 25-yard line. That's Lee coming in motion. Atkinson drops the snap, goes down on it, and that's going to bring up 4th down. And a big break for Federal Way as Atkinson maybe looking to go back to pass for the first time. Drops the ball, couldn't handle it, and that will bring on the punting unit. So no first downs on that drive for Auburn. And now Auburn's going to punt it away to the very dangerous Chico McClatcher.
A tough 3 and out there for Auburn. You've got to keep this Federal Way offense off the field, all those weapons we talked about, and a 3 and out and getting -1 yard on the drive is not the way to go.
The punt is away, and it is short. Out of bounds as well, and Federal Way is going to start with great field position here. They're going to start inside the Auburn 40-yard line, and here's the offense that they will start with. Evan Elliott, the quarterback. He has the running back tandem of Rod Jones Jr. and Zeke McNeil. Wide receivers Mike Tate, Marcel Morris, and Delando Tucker. In the offensive line, Pulu Williams, the center Tiumalu, Afua, and Albert Havili.
Zeke McNeil back this week, Jason, as he was in Washington, D.C. last week. Missed the game. He was there for a conference, and now he's back, so probably pretty fresh.
1st and 10. Elliott will give the ball off to McNeil, and he gets the ball in the first play, and a nice stop by the Auburn defense. And let's take a look at their defensive starters. They go with a 3-4, the front line of Shelton, Franchek, and Arnold. The linebacking core of Mizuguchi, Velasco, and McNeely. Cornerback Sloan and Lee on the outside. Mual is the safety, and Tate and Hagens play the monster position. Here's a snap to Elliott, fakes the handoff. He's going to throw to the near side. Rod Jones Jr. makes the catch. He goes up towards the 20-yard line, and that will be close to a first down, but I don't think enough.
And he leaped over Darnell Hagens, and you could see Hagens with his face down on the turf, smacked his hand down in frustration. He wasn't injured. He just watched his bigger opposition just go right over, hurdle him.
You mentioned Auburn trying to keep the ball away from this Federal Way offense. They start with the ball around the 35-yard line. This team, over 25 plays this season where they've scored touchdowns of 30 yards or more. So this is really nothing for them. In fact, it's very rare to see them actually get in the red zone. And I think we might get a measurement here. Ball spotted at the 21-yard line, and looking across the field, that's where the yard marker appears to be. And now here come the chains. So Federal Way, again, 7-0 coming in. Auburn 6-1. Both teams playoff bound for certain. Federal Way trying to make it happen here. 2 tough games at the end of the season. Elliott takes the snap, will pitch it right to McNeil. McNeil looking for the outside. He's going to split a couple tacklers, but eventually is taken down on the play. The tackle for Mizuguchi, and that will bring up second down. They get it inside the 20-yard line.
Kevin Shelton came in and helped on the tackle as well. That's a name we'll be saying a lot. A starter 2 ways for Auburn and one of their top players.
And his brother on the defensive line at the University of Washington. Kevin Shelton, a guy who a lot of people think will play Pac-12 football once his high school career here in Auburn is done. 3 wide receivers to the left side. They go from their spread pistol. Elliott takes the snap. Takes a handoff, looking down the field to throw, has some pressure. Lots of time, though, as he cuts back across the other side. Throws to the end zone. Very dangerous pass. That was intended for 19 Brandon Warren, and he threw it over his hands and incomplete.
Well, there was no lack of time there on the play. He had Marcel Morris open for a minute in the far corner of the end zone, but that's a good sign for Federal Way, even an incompletion there, but plenty of time to let that play develop, and just an incompletion. But if you can get that every time, you'll take it.
You look at positives both ways, I think, with Auburn's defense. You look at all these athletes on the side for Federal Way. To be able to cover them for that long is pretty impressive in the secondary. Couple of players go in motion in front of Elliott. 3rd and 5 from the 16. Elliott looking down the field, has pressure, he's hit, and he is going to be taken down. That's a sack. And who got in there to make the play? Looks like McNeely. McNeely comes up with the sack, a 2-way player. We mentioned him as one of the tight ends, but he's also one of the team's inside linebackers, and he comes in to make the play.
Leroy Arnold on the defensive line was bringing pressure as well. I counted 4 green jerseys that ended up collapsing in on him and getting that sack. Good 3rd down defense.
So how about that start for the Auburn defense? Federal Way gets 1 first down, but that's all. And that'll bring up 4th and 10, and they're going to bring the field goal unit out, Kobe Craig, to try and kick this one away.
Craig had a 37-yarder in week 6 against Beamer, so he does have a pretty good leg.
Not sure if you've all seen it at home, but the big news, and especially the state of Washington, it's making national news this weekend, is a kicker in Spokane who kicked a 67-yard field goal to tie a game in the later stages of a game out in Eastern Washington. Here's the kick. It's up a line drive shot, and it looks like it will go wide to the right, and the kick no good. Certainly had the distance, and Kobe Craig no good. So Auburn will get the football back at the 21-yard line, 1st and 10. And with 7:15 to go, I think that's a success for Auburn. And now the offense really has to start controlling the football and keeping it away from the Federal Way offense.
Oh, you're absolutely right. That is best case scenario for Auburn. Federal Way began that drive at the 31-yard line of the Trojans after the bad punt, and no points out of that. A huge success for Auburn. Nothing, -1 yards on that first drive. Trying to put up some positive yards here.
So Atkinson under center. Here comes Lee across, and it's going to be Atkinson to fake the handoff. Takes it himself, and again, nothing doing at the line there. And Atkinson, you see, faking that handoff to Lee and taking it himself, and they're going to give him a loss of 2 yards on the play. That's going to bring up 2nd and 12 from the 18-yard line.
Winston Havili with the tackle. There's two Havilis that we'll be talking about tonight. Albert, the two-way starter for Federal Way, and Winston as well. So Havili, a name you'll be hearing a lot for the Eagles.
Cousin of former USC Trojan Stanley Havili, who's now playing with the Philadelphia Eagles. Here's Atkinson. He's going to give it off. That is number 24, Hagens, coming around to the far side. And again, nothing doing there as Federal Way's defense snuffs it out. And that speed you see on that front line. Right now, Auburn looks like they haven't seen a team with that kind of speed on the front line.
Keenan Kern and J.J. McNeil tag teaming for the tackle, and I think you hit the nail on the head. The speed and also the strength. Look at the big guys up front, and you can see standing out is J.T. Tuali right there. That's a big guy. Not many teams has a guy who can fill up that much space. 6'3", 295 pounds right in the middle for the Eagles.
So a 3rd down and 10, and for a team that doesn't like to pass the ball that often, this might be tough. Here comes Lee across. There's Atkinson, and he gives the ball off. That's going to go to Kevin Shelton coming around, and Shelton's got nothing there, and that's going to bring up 4th down. So a 3 and out, and they don't gain any yardage on that drive at all. In fact, they lost 2 yards on a play. We were able to gain those 2 yards back, and they actually give them a loss of 1 there. So 4th and 11, and again, they are going to punt the ball back, and looks like Federal Way is going to come up with great field position again. And the punt, the snap over the head of the punter, Brendan Greer, and it will go into the back of the end zone for a safety. And Federal Way is going to get on the board first in a way that I think we probably least expected.
Well, I'm laughing just thinking about this, Jason. Before the game, we were talking about how both teams have these great offenses, and still it's only a little over halfway through the first quarter, but it's been the defenses and not much from either offense so far through the first 3 drives, and it's a mistake on special teams that equals the first points of tonight's game.
Well, Auburn has to be frustrated with their start, I think, especially because of the fact that they're playing here at home. It's senior night, it's homecoming, and this is the best opponent they will probably face this season, at least in the regular season. And you'd hope, if you're their coaching staff and fans, that they'd get up a little more for it. But right now, they don't seem to have much going for them here early on. And even though Federal Way didn't look great their first time with the football, I think Federal Way, they've got the early momentum here in the first quarter. So 2-0, Eagles beating the Trojans. And Auburn, after the safety, will have to kick off, and they can only kick here from the 20-yard line. And that's what happens with a safety. It's going to be good field position for Federal Way. Kick is up, and it's going to go over to Zeke McNeil. He takes it at the 35, coming across the field. McNeil trying to elude some tacklers. Now to the 50, comes across the 50, and will be taken out of bounds. Coming over is Brendan Warren, who kind of got the last touch on him before he went out. And Federal Way will start in Auburn territory.
Effective block by his fellow deep man, Marcel Morris, allowed him to pick up maybe an extra 5-10 more yards on that return.
So here comes that offense. And Evan Elliott, a guy who I think gets lost in the shuffle with all these great athletes and guys who are going to go on to play at Division I schools. Evan Elliott, the quarterback, has done a fine job. 16 touchdown tosses this year, no interceptions. They've got it at the 48-yard line. Elliott and the rest of his teammates will look over at the sideline. They're going to get a new play. Now everyone checking the wristbands for that new play. Elliott takes the snap. They're going to give it off. That's McClatcher. First time we've called his name, and trying to spin away from a tackle. Can't do it. He is taken down. Tackle on the play for Arnold, and a gain of 2 yards will bring up 2nd and 8.
McClatcher only a sophomore, and when we talked to Coach Marr before the game, asking him about the absence of Zeke McNeil last week, he talked about Chico McClatcher filling that void, and a guy who's continued to take on more and more responsibilities throughout the year.
McClatcher, only a sophomore, already has been offered a spot to play at the University of Washington. Elliott gives the ball off, now keeps it himself, and he is going to be hit hard and taken down. There's Arnold again with a big hit, and he's pumped. And Elliott faked that snap and ran around to the right side and was unable to get anything.
There was some hard hitting going on that play. First it was Kevin Shelton and Leroy Arnold as well. Both, you could hear the crack up here on those 2 hits. These are 2 very physical teams and very physical defenses.
Mike Tate on the near side, the receiver. Marcel Morris on the far side. McNeil going in motion. Here's the snap. And they give the ball off to McClatcher, and he's open in space. 20-yard line, flag goes up past the 10 to the 5 and into the end zone for a touchdown. Chico McClatcher, but we'll have to check on the flag. And Chico certainly got hit hard early in the play, but that's something Federal Way does very well. They get hit, stay up, and they go into the end zone.
McClatcher showing off right there. He's slippery. He had multiple hands on him and able to elude those tackles, and then he was off.
Well, let's check the penalty here as the head official gets ready to call it. And they're going to say no flag on the play, so it's a touchdown for Federal Way. And Federal Way up now 8-0 as Kobe Craig comes on to try to put the extra point through. And there's another touchdown of over 30 yards. It's a 44-yard run for Chico McClatcher, and the first touchdown has been scored with 4 minutes and 2 seconds to play here in this first quarter. Kobe Craig for the extra point, trying to make it a 9-0 game. Kick is up, and it is good. So 9-0 Federal Way the score. And Auburn getting a dose of what Federal Way has done to their opposition all year, scoring from outside of 30 yards. And McClatcher, a sophomore, showing off that great speed.
And he's picking up right where he left off last week. In that 42-13 win over Spanaway Lake, he had 150 yards rushing on just 9 carries and 2 touchdowns. He also had a 78-yard touchdown pass, so he's just picking up right where he was last week. And this kid is only a sophomore. That is scary for all the other teams, and excellent news for Federal Way.
McClatcher only a sophomore this year. You can bet by the time he's a senior, he's going to be on the cover of a lot of ESPN recruiting magazines and all those scout.com stories. This is a guy who is going to be a big deal later in high school, if he's not already one now. And you mentioned McNeil not being around last week, being in Washington, D.C. Coach Marr said that gave McClatcher a chance to kind of fill in for him. And with Marr saying, look, he supported McNeil going to D.C. even though he had to miss a game, you can understand why he'd be okay with it.
That's right. And McNeil, the leading rusher and scorer. And just to elaborate what he was doing in D.C., he was one of 250 students from across the country, National Youth Leadership Forum on National Security. So maybe a career for that for him in that area for him someday.
So the kick away, and that's going to be Harold Lee to take it at the 6-yard line. Lee waiting for his blockers, starting slowly. Now he's got some room past the 30 to the 40, and he is free. One man to beat. It's the kicker, Craig. Craig gets a hand on him, but he's going down. Lee now taken down to the 15-yard line, and going down to chase him and finally take him out is Bajan Warren. What a big return for Harold Lee all the way to the 15. 80-yard return on that one.
Oh, the hometown fans here in Auburn have been waiting for that, a big play. Harold Lee must have been watching that play by McClatcher and thinking, hey, I need my opportunity. Got it right there. It's like the seas parted for him up the middle, and boy, did he take advantage of it.
It was fun to watch the start of that play, how he just waited for his blockers to get set up, kind of was very slow to get to that first level, and then took off right through the middle. So now inside the Federal Way red zone as Atkinson under center sends Waldo in motion. Now here comes Hagans. Atkinson's going to give it to Hagans, left side, and he's met in the backfield, able to elude one tackler before Keenan Curran gets in there to take him down, and maybe a yard, if any, gain on the play.
And he had to work hard for it. Jared Pulu was right there ready to take him down in the backfield, able to get by him, but only 2 yards on the run, so not a whole lot for all the work he had to do.
2nd and 9. Auburn trying to get on the board and keep pace with Federal Way. Crucial that they at least get some form of points here on this drive. Atkinson back to throw, looking, throwing. That's Lee, and he overthrows him in the left corner of the end zone.
That's about what you want there. He didn't have a whole lot of time, but that's what that was designed to do, get Lee in the end zone alone. He just barely had a little too much mustard on it, a missed opportunity there for Auburn.
And with Lee, a guy who we're going to see a lot tonight because he can score in a lot of different ways, as you mentioned, Chris. Lee can score on the ground, he can catch passes, but then also he's had couple interception returns for touchdowns, and punt return and kick returns, as we saw him almost take one to the house just a few moments ago. He's the man in motion here. He's going to get the football, coming near side, and look at Federal Way. They're all over that, and the tackle going to be made by J.J. McNeil, and no gain on that play. So Auburn trying to figure out how to gain positive yardage against this Federal Way offense. They've not done a good job of it so far. Defense, excuse me.
And they don't have a yard on offense. They had the big kickoff return, but they lost a yard on the first drive. They didn't get any yards on the drive before. And here on the third drive, a 1-yard gain, so nothing there. It's almost like Federal Way's just forming a wall at the line of scrimmage.
Most they've moved the ball was a 5-yard gain on a Federal Way encroachment penalty. And now, as fourth down comes along, we are going to see a field goal attempt. Axel Barajas to kick this one. It's a 35-yard attempt. Kick is up, no good, and someone might have gotten a hand in there because it didn't have a chance from the moment it left Barajas' foot. So even with that big return, Auburn comes up with nothing, and Federal Way is going to have the ball back, but at least for the Auburn defense, they have some space here. Hey fans, do you want to watch more of your school's great matchups like the game you are enjoying here tonight? Tell your school to sign up for the Play On Sports School Broadcast Program. The program allows schools to broadcast all their games and other activities on the web. For more information, go to playonsports.com/SBP. Federal Way will start at the 20-yard line, and here's Keenan Curran to come in and play quarterback out of the Wildcat. Throws the ball down the field, and it's intercepted. Ball picked up by the safety Muau. He's taken down by Marcel Morris just outside of the 35-yard line, and that is a big turnover. And now Auburn's offense coming out to try to get some yardage.
And it was one of those interceptions you could see developing from a mile away. He was going up the middle, and Muau, the 6'2" senior, read it perfectly as he sprawled out, got the interception. And Auburn, as we've talked about and worth repeating, they haven't had anything going here on offense tonight. Can they get something going here starting in Federal Way territory?
So they've got the ball at the 37-yard line, and we hear the band, Auburn, the marching band, the Trojans, borrowing the fight song from the Trojans from down south, USC. Man in motion. And that's Muau. He's looking to throw now, but he's hit in the backfield and taken down. And there's Albert Havili to take him down. A loss of 4 on the play at the 41-yard line. And nothing doing there as Muau and the Auburn offense tries to go to a little trickery.
Well, Auburn has done a good job of scoring this year, except for their one loss. They've won 6 straight games, but in week 1, they lost to Kentwood 31-7, and they avoided the shutout just towards the end of the game. But since then, offense hasn't been an issue. So for Auburn, they're not used to this, having a defense being so physical and so far so dominating.
Well, as we've seen, though, from Kentwood, that's a pretty good team itself. Muau again in motion. Atkinson is going to give it off McNeely. He's hit in the backfield, taken down again. This time it's going to be number 51 to come in to make the play, and that's Jared Pulu.
And this just leaves you shaking your head so far with how good Federal Way's defense has been able to do. They have been absolutely dominating here. We have 1 minute to go in the first quarter, and it's been nothing less than dominating.
3rd down and 14 from the 41-yard line. So this is going to be tough here. They're barely able to gain 1 yard, let alone 14. In motion, Hagens. Atkinson back to throw. Throwing down the field, has a man. It's complete to the 30, but no, they're going to say incomplete. Havili comes on with a big hit, and the ball is dropped. And that pass intended for Kevin Shelton, the tight end. So we're going to see a 4th down here, 4th and 14. Here comes the punting unit.
And it wouldn't have been enough for a first down, but in this kind of tweener territory, it would have been enough to probably make you go for it on 4th down. It would have set up right around a 4th and 3, 4th and 4, but instead 4th and 14, and you're going to have to boot it off.
Brendan Greer back out there to punt, and the dangerous Chico McClatcher is back to receive. Some last-minute substitution, some confusion, as Auburn trying to get a man off the field. They're able to do so before the snap gets off. So Greer to punt the ball away. Snap is good, punt is up, and McClatcher is going to let it bounce at the 10-yard line. Takes a nice Auburn hop, and it's going to be down inside the 10. Big punt there as Federal Way is going to have a long way to go to score another touchdown here. PlayOnSports.com is not only your destination for Friday night football action, but it's also the place for the most comprehensive coverage of high school playoff and championship events in all sports from across the country. PlayOnSports.com, high school sports lives here. So 9-0 Federal Way, and they're going to have the ball at their own 8-yard line. Saw Federal Way in a game against Bethel early this year have the ball from their own half-yard line and go down the field and score in only 3 plays. Here's a handoff. Elliott giving it off to McClatcher, and he's thrown down. A little late aggression there, but we don't see any flags come up. And Auburn with a big stand, and I think that play is going to take us to the end of the first quarter as we see Auburn's defense coming up big there, doing their best Federal Way defense impression. Clock reads zeros across. We have come to the end of one period of play, and Federal Way 9-0 lead. Auburn hanging around. They've had a couple of big positive plays, including that kickoff return and the interception. But now the defense trying to hold Federal Way back deep in its own territory. We're going to take a quick break here. Back in a moment for more Friday night football from Auburn Memorial Stadium. Again, after one quarter, it's Federal Way.
We can get a player up here.
Ah, that's good stuff.
Perfect. Prepare a Wiley Ballard graphic.
Do you want me to start the stream?
Start the stream. Camera 3. Beautiful. We're coming in on 1. For more information on how your school can join the Play On School broadcast program, go to playonsports.com/SBP.
Welcome back to Auburn Memorial Stadium along with Jason Schwartz. Chris King here with you. Our score as we start the second quarter. Federal Way 9, Auburn nothing. And Jason, for Auburn, I guess you can take solace in the fact that, well, some things went wrong for you, but some things also went right for you as well. But a little frustrating to have that goose egg on the scoreboard after the interception. And also, it was an 80-yard kickoff return as well that they got from Harold Lee, and no points to show for it.
No doubt about it. I think the Auburn defense has done a very good job early on in this game. 2 plays stand out, 1 that interception, 2 that play in which Evan Elliott inside the red zone had all that time to throw and was unable to find any receivers, threw high to his intended receiver. The Auburn secondary doing a very nice job there covering these great athletes of Federal Way.
This game really has been about the defense so far. Frustrating special teams for Auburn as you consider the safety. It was a high snap on a punt. Here we go, 2nd and 10 from their own 8-yard line. The Eagles averaging over 40 points a game. A handoff and plenty of room to go for Federal Way. Going off to the races at McNeil. He's on the sideline. No one in front of him. There he goes. A 92-yard touchdown run for Zeke McNeil. And the fireworks start immediately on the very first play of the second quarter for the Eagles.
And you can see if you're a team playing Federal Way, if you don't hit their ball carrier in the backfield or near the line of scrimmage, once he gets into your secondary, he's gone. These teams just don't have anybody match up as far as speed is concerned. And you saw McNeil, as he got to the near sideline, just go to that second level, and he was gone really from inside their own 50-yard line.
Kobe Craig on for the point after attempt. 15-0 the score. First play of the second quarter. And Federal Way, talked about them being pinned back deep in their own territory, but boy, does not take them long to strike. Craig tonight has missed a field goal attempt, but 1 for 1 on his point after attempts. Plenty of height on it, and it splits the uprights. It's good. 16-0. Federal Way leads Auburn. 11:47 remaining in the first half.
Well, the problem is when you play Federal Way, if you can't stay with them early in the game, they're not going to stop scoring. There was a game earlier, Federal Way played Puyallup, and at the end of the first quarter, it was 28-20 Federal Way. Each team scored on all of their drives. Puyallup didn't score the rest of the game. It was 56-20 Federal Way at the half. The final score was 63-20. So it just goes to show you, it's not so much about beating Federal Way as it is keeping up with Federal Way. And then just being in position to try to win the game late.
And we talked about it before, but Zeke McNeil breaking off a 92-yard touchdown run. He was gone last week in the game against Spanaway Lake at that National Security Conference for high school age kids who are looking to get into that field in the future in Washington, D.C. And maybe he was starting to feel the breath of Chico McClatcher on his neck as McClatcher did a great job in his place, and overall just another very effective weapon for Federal Way. But McNeil, hey, kind of reclaiming his territory a bit with that run.
Well, maybe he also had fresh legs too. He had a week off and a nice chance to hang out in Washington, D.C. and relax a little bit. And here he is back on the big stage. And it's nice for him to get a bye week, especially with the playoffs coming up soon. And Federal Way, a team that really feels like this year they have a chance to go deep in the playoffs.
Talking to Coach Marr before the game, excited how the schedule laid out for them. Probably the two toughest matchups of the season in this last 2 weeks. This matchup here with Auburn and taking on Curtis, who only has one loss next week. A deep boop by Craig as Lee will grab it off the ground. He had an 80-yard return last time, and a different story here. And a heck of a hit, and the first thing you think of is the safety right now of Harold Lee, as he was absolutely laid out on the return. We have a penalty flag down. And as the celebration is over there for Federal Way, a little tough to see who got the hit. I believe it was Jared Pulu who came up with the stop.
Might have been Leroy Arnold who came in, the senior, who we've seen him lay a lot of big hits tonight. Or excuse me, not Leroy Arnold, Winston Havili.
And boy, that is a hit you don't see too often at the high school level. Just someone who can deliver a hit like that, and Lee coming out with so much speed as well. And certainly the first thing you think of is the health right now of Harold Lee.
Well, there is a flag on the play, and it'll be interesting to see what the penalty is here, because it came late. Did not come right after the hit. It came after Havili had picked up the ball and taken it into the end zone. Trying to think of that hit from up here. It's tough to tell whether it was a legal hit or not. I don't know if Havili was leading with his helmet. It might be a helmet-to-helmet hit there, though that's tough on a kickoff return.
I think that's the only thing on a play like that it could be. And he absolutely had his legs taken out from under him. And boy, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, something like that would more be celebrated just as a big hit, and everything that we know now about concussions and still starting to learn, that the first thing you think of is, boy, hopefully everything is okay, because that was absolutely a monster hit.
Well, the good thing was right off the bat, right now it's hard to see the player down on the field, so many people surrounding him, but the good thing was right away he was moving. So it wasn't a case where he was just knocked cold. He was moving. He would definitely seem like he just got the wind knocked out of him. At least that's what you hope it is. But he was certainly moving around. And now they're going to have the teams come off the field.
So as Harold Lee is getting attended to here after the hit, we're going to take a timeout. 11:39 remaining in the second quarter. Federal Way up 16-0. We'll take a break. You're watching the Auburn Trojans and the Federal Way Eagles on PlayOnSports.com.
One match away from immortality.
This is a total team effort.
We're gonna come at you.
One shot at this.
Well, welcome back to Auburn Memorial Stadium. Right now that is Harold Lee still being attended to as he took a very, very big hit on the kickoff return. So we're on an injury timeout, and we'll stay that way as Lee continues to get looked at. And boy, you just hope everything is okay for Harold Lee, a very good basketball player and really the top weapon on offense for Auburn as well, the 5'9", 160-pound senior. So we'll take a break with this injury timeout and come back as Harold Lee gets attended to and when play picks back up. So we'll take a timeout here. Again, 11 minutes and 39 seconds to play in the first half. Federal Way leading Auburn 16-0.
We can get a player up here.
Oh, that's good stuff.
All right, perfect. Prepare a Wiley Ballard graphic.
Do you want me to start the stream?
Start the stream. Camera 3. Beautiful. We're coming in on 1. For more information on how your school can join the Play On School broadcast program, go to playonsports.com/SBP.
Welcome back to Auburn Memorial Stadium, back after the injury timeout as Harold Lee just being carted over to the ambulance right now, but a good sign that we saw there at the very end as he was coming off. He stuck up his hand and waved over towards the crowd, and boy, hopefully everything is okay with Harold Lee. If you're just joining us here, 11 minutes, 39 seconds to go in the second quarter. 16-0 Federal Way with the lead after scoring a touchdown. They were kicking off to Auburn, and Harold Lee, who had an 80-yard kickoff return that brought it into the red zone on his last time. Well, he brought it out this time at about the 20-yard line. He took an awfully big hit from Winston Havili and was down after that. And as both teams are starting to get loose, and first off, our thoughts are with Harold Lee. That's the most important thing is his health. There's a flag down, and the game will pick up after just awful circumstances. That is just always the worst thing to see.
And one of the good things, though, is that he was moving both legs and both his arms, and he did give a little salute to the crowd as he came off of the field to show that hopefully he will be okay, hopefully, again. But as you mentioned before, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we maybe look at that hit and applaud that hit. Now, those kind of hits, there are flags down for them, and obviously a guy like Harold Lee, this game is worse without him on the field, because Lee is a guy who's really fun to watch and a great athlete and has racked up some great numbers this year for this Auburn offense.
Well, Harold Lee, just taking a look at what he's done, he's been, and no argument there, the top skill player for the Trojan. He's piled up 13 touchdowns in just about every way you possibly could this year, between rushing, receiving, a kickoff return, a punt return, and 3 interception returns for touchdowns. And he's a guy that Federal Way was going to keep an extra eye on. He's not a tough guy to spot down there on the field. Wears the neon green shoes and also the tape to go with it, that electric highlighter. So you can see him probably from up in outer space. I'm certain NASA could probably catch him on some of their satellites. But he's a guy who last year, after a good start to his junior year, a defensive back and returner, broke his leg in the second game against Mount Rainier, so had to miss all of his junior year after that, coming on and having a great senior year. So it makes it extra tough to see that happen there to Harold Lee.
And now, of course, as we look forward to the rest of this game, Darnell Hagans becomes a key factor for this Auburn offense. He'll probably get most of the touches, the other running back alongside Lee, as we see the teams come back onto the field now. And by the way, we have not heard anything about that flag. They may have moved the ball forward 15 yards for the hit, but there was never an announcement from the official.
So we're working on the assumption that it's a helmet-to-helmet hit on the personal foul, as it is 15 yards. So 1st and 10 from the 34-yard line. Atkinson goes back, puts up the pass deep, but oversails his intended target, TJ Muau.
This is going to be a tough secondary Federal Way to throw the ball deep against. They've got Keenan Curran, a great athlete who we saw actually throw an interception of his own out of the quarterback position earlier in the game. But Curran, a great safety, and a guy who might be a safety at the next level.
And we have another penalty here.
And this one against Federal Way also as they move the ball up. So the only time that Auburn has been able to move the ball is on Federal Way penalties.
The kickoff return that they had, and then here, back-to-back personal foul penalties. So Federal Way, a very athletic, strong team. And here they're essentially being told through the penalties to tamper it down a bit. So it'll be 1st and 10 from their own 49-yard line, 16-0. Thanks for joining us, along with Jason Schwartz. Chris King with you at Auburn Memorial Stadium. Going in motion is Jacob Sloan. Under center, Atkinson scrambles up the middle, and there's nothing there for him. Will sprawl forward for a yard, but does a lot of work as he wraps up into the arms of Tiumalu.
You saw this Federal Way. They run a 3-5 defense. You saw the defensive line there. Everybody coming up in the box, everybody right on top of the line. They're expecting that run every single play. And like you said earlier, Chris, kind of like forming a wall at the line of scrimmage that Auburn just has not been able to crack.
That's really what it feels like. And then you see Keenan Curran just hovering back there in the secondary as he starts to creep up. 2nd and 9 here. The handoff goes to the inside. A lot of work for DeMontre McNeely. He makes it to the 47-yard line. It will be a 2-yard gain, but still it sets up 3rd and long. 7 yards to go to move the chains.
Interesting with DeMontre McNeely. How many offenses do you see that give the ball to their tight end to run? Auburn shows us with all that confusion at the line of scrimmage, at least the confusion that they try to create, they can give the ball to anybody to run it.
Last week, he actually had touchdown runs of 6 and 33 yards. So you're exactly right. It is an unconventional setup with the tight end touching the ball, but they've had success out of it. But without Harold Lee, where there's not much to really set it up as far as getting success in other ways. Atkinson goes straight back about 15 yards. Screenplay almost intercepted. Boy, that ball was just hanging in the air as sprinting through for Federal Way was Albert Havili. Unfortunately for Auburn, it hits the turf, and it will set up 4th and 6.
On that play, almost doomed from the start. When you have a quarterback, it drops back that far. And like you said, 15-yard drop back there. He just kept going back and back and back. You have very little option as a quarterback. You have to look way down the field just to find somebody for a yard or two.
Brendan Greer making his 4th punt of the game. 16-0, Auburn punting it off. Under 10 minutes remaining in the 2nd quarter. A little confusion over for Auburn, and they need an 11th man on the field. Couldn't get him in time. Trying to sprint out there was Riley Dozier, but a timeout will be called by the Trojans. That will be their first of the game, and first used by either team.
Well, you've got a feel for Auburn right now on their sideline, and their head coach, Gordon Elliott, in his 11th year with this Trojan football team. They lost their best player. Now they're just trying to regain their composure and figure out a way to beat this Federal Way team, at least just stay in the game. And this has got to be tough. You can feel the life has just been sucked out of the stands here. And again, this is senior night and homecoming, and Harold Lee has been a big part of this program for his 4 years here.
Auburn under Gordon Elliott has been a very consistent team until last season. Auburn had advanced to the playoffs 8 straight years, including making the 4A quarterfinals from 2008 to 2010. Went 4-6 last year, but a 6-1 record coming into tonight, really turning things around after that rough patch they hit last season. So Greer on to punt. His first one was shanked a bit. His last one was a beauty. Here another high towering punt going back as McClatcher goes off his hands into the end zone. And it will be a touchback, so McClatcher avoids disaster as it goes off his hands, and Federal Way will start at their own 20-yard line.
And that is a tough break for Auburn, considering the fact that it went off of McClatcher's hands out of the end zone, bounced back in, just with the way the rules work. I mean, certainly if you're at an upper level of the game and that ball goes into the end zone, you're looking at a possible safety, or even if Auburn recovers it, they could get a touchdown there. Fans, don't forget, Play on Sports is on Facebook and Twitter, giving you news and information and links to great highlights.
Here's Zeke McNeil again. Excellent open field tackle by TJ Muau. So still in a situation like that, Jason, when you have an excellent tackle, it's still a 3-yard pickup on it. That's just the way it's been for Federal Way's offense in this game and this season as well. Second and 7, 9:15 remaining in this 2nd quarter. Federal Way scored on their last drive a 92-yard Zeke McNeil touchdown run. And Chico McClatcher had a 44-yard touchdown run, a safety, giving them their 16-point total. McClatcher here has a big hole, goes up the middle, breaks off another big run to the inside to the 30, and he will be forced out of bounds eventually. Jacob Sloan combining with Muau to force him out of bounds, but Federal Way just rips off another huge chunk of yards.
And that was actually Zeke McNeil getting the run there. McNeil coming up, another big run. Remember, he was the guy who had the 92-yard run for their first touchdown.
First and 10 from the 20-yard line now in the red zone. Federal Way, this potent offense really being set up by their defense here tonight. McClatcher trying to get to the outside, waiting for that block to develop, and it just never does. Brendan Greer throws him to the turf, and it'll be a 1-yard loss. And on the near side at about the 25-yard line on the near hash, we have another Auburn player down.
Looks like Leroy Arnold is down, number 54. Guy who's a big part of this team, both on the offensive and defensive sides of the ball. They've got the trainer out checking him out, and he's another guy, big playmaker for them that they just cannot afford to lose here tonight. Interesting, too, that Auburn has really been a team that has had very good health this season. They have not suffered a lot of injuries. They've got a full healthy squad coming in here tonight. And we see them lose Harold Lee and now Leroy Arnold, and he appears to be in a lot of pain as they check out his left leg.
It's funny you mentioned that, talking to Coach Gordon Elliott earlier this week. That's one of the first things he said when I just kind of asked him in general, hey, this season 6-1, how have you had this stretch where you've reeled off 6 straight victories? And he said, hey, we've been fortunate. We haven't had many injuries. Definitely that injury to Harold Lee is about as big as it can get for the Trojans. And Leroy Arnold, a two-way starter, is definitely not a guy they want out as well. Really praise the group of seniors that they have here for the Trojans this year. And here it is, senior night. And those injuries, they couldn't get much tougher for Auburn.
Arnold being helped to his feet here, and he's walking off the field under his own powers, so that's a good sign at least. Again, just from the body language from up here, it looked like he was in a lot of pain, but he's coming off walking on his own, so we'll see him back out on the field hopefully later in the game.
If you're just joining us, 16-0 our score. Federal Way leading Auburn, 8:35 to go. We had about a 20-minute injury delay as Harold Lee was taken off the field by an ambulance after being hit on a kickoff return. McNeil in the backfield. They fake the handoff. It actually goes to him, and McNeil goes up the middle and into the end zone. Touchdown, Federal Way. And McNeil reels off another, this time a 21-yarder, his second of the night. And Federal Way adds on to that lead.
Not only are these guys so athletic, they're so shifty. McNeil, McClatcher, take your pick. These guys, they create these touchdowns and these big runs from themselves. Certainly the blocking is good, but there are a couple Auburn guys who got their hands on McNeil there, and McNeil just blows right past them and jukes them out.
The senior kicker, Kobe Craig, 2 for 2 tonight on his point after attempts. The hold is down by Tucker. The kick is up, and like clockwork, it is in. And it is now 23-0 for Federal Way. 8:18 to play in the second quarter. And Jason, if you're Federal Way, could you really have asked for a better quarter in some change here? We're not even halfway through the second quarter to be up 23-0 on a team the caliber of Auburn.
The funny thing about Federal Way is, I don't know if you would have asked for a better quarter, but this is what they expect. This is what they've had all season long. It has been impossible for opposing defenses to stop them. Now, the interesting thing, though, as we get later into the season and we go into the postseason, certainly Federal Way is a team that can make some noise in the playoffs. One thing Coach Marr has talked about a lot, though, is his team's failure to execute. And it's tough when you've got guys who can score from 92 yards out of the end zone. It's tough because you're not executing. You just have guys who show their athleticism, run down the field. But the question is, when they get to those later stages, when they play some of the better schools late in the playoffs who maybe can match up with their athleticism, what's going to happen? What's this offense going to look like?
5 teams at the 4A level are still undefeated. Federal Way, of course, amongst that group, ranked second in the state right now. Skyline, the Spartans, are ranked first. Jacob Sloan back waiting for this kickoff return, as that is what led to the Harold Lee injury last time. Kobe Craig sends this one, a low kick, a line drive taken at the 10-yard line by Muau. Sort of deliberately waits for a few blocks to set up, not a ton there, and is tackled at the 26-yard line.
One thing I noticed on that kickoff, Winston Havili, who delivered the big hit on Harold Lee to knock him out of the game, was not on the field for that kickoff. Havili, one of the better tacklers on this team, one of the better athletes. Him and his brother Albert Havili, as you mentioned, cousin of NFL fullback Stanley Havili. Interesting to see him being left off of the field for that kickoff there.
And what the duo those two are. Find me a better pair of brothers in this state. There might be a couple maybe in the same caliber, but they are right up there. The handoff, and it goes to Darnell Higgins, who will have to carry the load, as you mentioned, Jason, with Harold Lee out. He gets 4 yards on the carry.
And that's their biggest gain on offense tonight. And they went up the middle, which is something we have not seen them do very often at all. They've been trying to get to the edges against a fast team like Federal Way. That's not going to work. They've got to try to get the ball up the middle, see if they can create a hole in this defensive line.
Correct me if I'm wrong, their offense hasn't had a first down except for penalties. To start off their last drive, they had 2 back-to-back personal foul penalties. Keo Buchanan in motion, putting it up in the air is Atkinson, and the pass is intercepted. Picking it off is Delando Tucker. Tucker will be forced out a step inside the 20-yard line, and Federal Way takes back over.
Delando Tucker, a guy who, somewhat surprised we really haven't called his name much tonight. Tucker reads that pass well, and Atkinson again with a big drop back, had some time to throw. But Tucker just comes right up in front, and Delando with his athleticism, they like him on the defensive end even more than they like him when they see him at the wide receiver position.
It is just a who's who for Federal Way. They have guys like Tucker, who maybe we haven't mentioned his name as much tonight before that play right there, but he would be the top player for a lot of 3 or 4A schools. Just athlete after athlete here for Federal Way. 1st and 10. McClatcher, the ball carrier, pinballs his way up the middle. Hopping on his back to bring him down is DeMontre McNeely. But he's close to the first down near the 8-yard line.
And incredibly, another guy, Mike Tate, we haven't mentioned his name tonight much. Mike Tate, a guy who has Division I football offers from Idaho, Portland State, Montana, Eastern. Guy who's going to play at the next level. We've barely seen it all tonight as a factor.
Elliott out of that pistol formation. It goes up the middle and in for another touchdown. There is Federal Way. And it's Rod Jones Jr., the senior, with his first touchdown of the night. And it's just with ease now, it feels like, for the Eagles. They lead 29-0.
And if this team could get more confident, I think this game will give them more confidence. I know they think they're really good, and they are very, very good. But against a team like Auburn, and we talked with Coach Marr before the game, he almost said like these 2 last games are almost de facto playoff games with less pressure because it wasn't lose and you're out. But here they are controlling this one, about to go up 30-0.
Craig's point after is good. He's perfect on the night, and it is 30-0, and it's still so early on. We're not even halfway through the second quarter. 6:53 to go in the first half, but Federal Way has almost made it a habit of forcing that rule where it goes to a running clock. Just a reminder that the WIAA voted before the season to add a running clock in the second half of games when there's a 40-point differential, and Federal Way has scored so many points, so high offensive outputs throughout the season, and they've become used to that.
And you talk about the running clock. Well, here's a stat for you. This season, Federal Way, they have scored 285 of their points in the first half. In the second half, they've scored just 63. And that's because in almost all their games, they've had that running clock in the second half. They bring in the second stringers, the third stringers. Most of these starters, you won't even see them out here for the second half. At least so far, that's been the way things have gone for them when they've had these huge second half leads.
30-0 our score, along with Jason Schwartz. Chris King along with you. 6:53 to go in the second quarter. Harold Lee, the top skill player for the Trojans, having to be taken off in an ambulance here tonight after being hit on a kickoff return. So the Trojans are without their top offensive threats, and even beyond that, their top defensive threat as well. A guy who has rushed for a touchdown, had a receiving touchdown, a kickoff, a punt return for a touchdown, and 3 interception returns for a touchdown. Muau takes it, the kickoff the second straight time he's done that off a hop, and proceeds with caution past the 20-yard line, and he'll be put down at the 23, which is where this Auburn offense will take back over.
And at the end of that play, we saw Winston Havili was on the field there. We saw some talking back and forth between DeMontre McNeely and Winston Havili, the two of them helmet to helmet there. And one of McNeely's teammates grabbed him and pulled him off of the field. McNeely seemed to be a little bit fired up as Havili went off. But this Auburn team, of course, all these guys seniors on this offense. Atkinson, the only junior, they've played together for 4 years, and you know that it has to hurt them to see Lee come off the field and out of the game.
No doubt about it, and a nice turnout here tonight at Auburn Memorial Stadium. As we mentioned, senior night and homecoming here for the Trojans. So,
and very strange there to see the referee had McNeely go off of the field. I wonder if that had anything to do with what was being said between him and Havili. McNeely was there in the huddle. The referee grabbed him and directed him to the sideline where McNeely is now talking with a coach.
Ben Osservana comes in and takes his spot, and Greer, the ball carrier, never mind, it's Osservana who's doing his best Refrigerator Perry impersonation out past the 41-yard line. And it worked out pretty well to have him come into the game.
This is a very difficult offense to try to see who has the football when they run it. So many options, so many guys come around the ball, you just never know.
And Auburn getting their first down. That didn't come from a penalty here. 1st and 10 from their own 41. The halfway point of the second quarter. Ben Osservana, the sophomore out there. 6 men up on the line. It goes out wide to Muau. And he gets no gain and far from it. Tackled at the 37-yard line. It will be a 4-yard loss.
And again, more talking from this Federal Way defensive front as Muau comes up. They pat him on the back, but I think Federal Way really letting Auburn know who's boss here, at least trying to. They've got all the confidence.
Well, this will be interesting to see. Obviously, we got a lot more game here to go tonight, but Federal Way coach Marr saying before the game, looking at Auburn, that this is a playoff team. And where both teams go from here, Federal Way, as you mentioned, picking up a lot of confidence here so far, up 30-0. Atkinson under center, no one in the backfield. Hagens goes in motion. He'll get handed off to him right up the middle, and he is ripped from behind. It's Jared Prulu who brings him the wrong way for the Trojans.
Just incredible to see in Auburn. Their offensive line is not a bad offensive line. They've got good guys up front, and they can't get any space at all against this defensive front of Federal Way. And this is actually the 3rd time that I've seen Federal Way this season, and I think this is the best. They've controlled the front line all season long.
The Eagles dialing it up here in week 8. Auburn had Harold Lee run for 171 yards against Kent Lake. Kent Lake, not a bad squad. 3rd and 14 after the loss of the last play. Atkinson again sees Hagens go in motion. He will roll out with some time, looking for Muau at first, trying to leave it short. And it is incomplete. Alex Jennings, the tight end, his intended target, but it was deflected away.
Mike Tate coming over to get the deflection there. And you see the speed. Tate just covering ground, just steps in front. Really, it looked easy for him. That was one of Atkinson's best passes tonight, best chance at a completion. And Tate just came over, swatted away with ease. Here comes another punt. We have McClatcher, a chance to return one here.
Brendan Greer has been busy tonight, the punter for Auburn. The snap a bit low, but he collects it. A high spiraling kick. McClatcher drops it right at the 20-yard line. He's chipped but not taken down and won't be able to avoid the rest of the Trojans. A swarm comes in, the ball comes loose, and falling on it is Jack Tuia for the Trojans. They get the ball back, and a big turn of events there for Auburn.
I know McClatcher did a good job to stay on his feet there, but I can't believe the Federal Way sideline is happy with that call. It looked like his forward progress had been stopped. They were just dragging him backwards, and the ball came out very late. That being said, big turnover for Auburn, and they have a chance now deep in Federal Way territory to at least get on the board before the end of the half.
And they are on the 17-yard line. And we have have a whistle here before we get things started. Is trying to make sure everything is correct, and didn't see it if we have a timeout or not. It hasn't been signaled, but it looks like that is the case. 4:19 to go in the second quarter. 30-0 the score, but the Trojans, after the fumble on the punt return, will have it at the Federal Way 17-yard line.
There certainly was no timeout signaled. I don't know, maybe they're talking about that play and about that forward progress. It's very hard to hear the referee here. There was no flag on that play. Was he giving a sideline warning to the two teams?
That is the only thing I could think of, and looking up on the scoreboard, the timeouts are intact. 2 left for Auburn, 3 left for Federal Way, and that seems to be the case. Good call, a sideline warning. Well, we've seen Auburn attempt a field goal tonight from Axel Barajas. Well, that's the closest that they've come to scoring. That was off that Harold Lee kickoff return that brought them inside the red zone. And it looks like they're reassessing where they're spotting the football. Instead of the 17-yard line, it will be on the 12. Atkinson under center. Wow in motion. He'll get handed off the ball. Stutter step, but straight into the arms of the Federal Way defense. Making the stop, Rod Jones Jr. scored that last touchdown for the Eagles.
We mentioned the Havilis. Well, Rod Jones Jr., even maybe more than Winston Havili, the tandem of Albert Havili and Rod Jones Jr., widely considered to be one of the best linebacker duos in the state. Two guys who Coach Marr says it strike fear in the opponent. And seeing some of the hits tonight, I'd be afraid if I was in that backfield.
So it will be 2nd and 6, a 1-yard loss on the play. So there was a penalty on the sideline warning that made it 1st and 5. Atkinson spins out and hands it off to the tight end. It's McNeely who brings the pile along with him. And he's at the 6-yard line enough. Oh, take that back. The ball comes loose, and we have a late flag here. So Federal Way gets it back. And for Federal Way, Keenan Curran grabbing that ball, and a flag at the end of it. So both teams exchanging fumbles, and bad news for Auburn. They had a chance to get their first point, set up nicely. 1st and 5 from the 12-yard line. But McNeely can't hang on the run. And this has made Jason for a very long first half overall, as we had about a it's an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. It will move the ball half the distance to the goal line. That is the 3rd in this game for Federal Way. But with that injury time that we had for Harold Lee when he was taken off, and overall just multiple turnovers, and that's our 3rd unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. It's kind of a sluggish pace here right now.
But it still is going to be Federal Way ball. The penalty coming after the play was over, so they moved the ball back. And right now, looking out on the field, I don't see Evan Elliott, so I think they're going to go back to the Keenan Curran Wildcat style. And Curran, earlier in the game, the first time he was out there as the quarterback, he threw an interception. His throwing ability is not what really makes him special, though, in that style of offense. It's his shiftiness in the backfield and the way he's able to run it himself. And we're going to see that now from Federal Way.
TJ Muau was the one who intercepted him on the one and only pass that he's had so far. 1st down. Curran will take it up the middle. He's off to the races. Jumps off now to the 20, to the 30. Stiff arms one defender, tiptoeing along the sideline. And that is where the whistle will come in. He is forced out at the 39-yard line, but not bad overall. A 36-yard pickup on the very first play.
And it's just amazing to watch him. And watching the tape of Federal Way this season, you just see all these times the defense has no idea what's coming, where Keenan Curran's going to go. A few times we've seen 2 guys have hands on him in the backfield. He's able to escape them and take it down the field for these big gains.
30-0. 3 minutes, 20 seconds to play in this first half of the game. that has really been dominated by the Eagles, the number 2 team in the states at the 4A classification. McClatcher in motion. Curran hands it off to him. A big gap over on the left side. Grabbing a hold of him is Muau and spins him not out of bounds. The clock will keep running.
And with Federal Way, this is when things can get ugly, because you look at a play like that, McClatcher gains 9 yards, maybe just shy of a first down. It almost feels like a positive play for the Auburn defense.
And just when he got handed off that ball, he had a clear lane on the left side to go through. So they will give him the first down. That will stop the clock as they move the chains. Ball marked down at their own 49-yard line. Federal Way up 30-0. And they have spread the ball out as well. McClatcher, McNeil, and Jones all with touchdowns. Quarterback Curran spins away from a defender, now trying to come back towards the middle. And is able to get a few more yards after first contact to the 46, a 5-yard gain on the run.
Something Keenan Curran is able to do very well is change directions and change the side of the field. We've seen a couple of times this season, Curran on one sideline, pinned, goes to the other sideline. Then we've even seen in one play him come back to the other sideline to get into the end zone for a touchdown.
He's not afraid to put on that spin move. 2nd and 5 in Trojans territory at the 46. 2 men go in motion, and there's the flag that comes in. This will push them back 5 yards. A little miscommunication between McNeil and McClatcher.
Curran seems surprised that there's a flag thrown, but I'll tell you what, the 2 men going in motion didn't sell that very well. They kind of looked like they had done something wrong. So we're going to get a 5-yard penalty against Federal Way.
Some guilty body language. Oh, but they're going to wave it off. So Keenan Curran, maybe as Zach McNeil went to the National Security Convention in Washington, D.C. Maybe Curran has a future as a lawyer, the way he made that argument out there. 2nd and 5 from the 46-yard line. It goes to McNeil right up the middle. There he goes again to the 20, cuts back in with ease. Another touchdown for Zach McNeil. This time a 46-yarder, his 3rd of the night, and make it 36-0. The Eagles totally in control of this game with 2:08 to go in the first half.
On that play, you had Curran in the backfield, you had Delando Tucker, you had Zeke McNeil, you had Chico McClatcher. 4 incredible athletes with the ability to run the ball, and as a defense, you have no idea who is going to take it. It's almost an impossible task for a defense to try to stop that.
3 touchdowns for McNeil in the first half alone, and he missed last week. And not missing a beat. A low snap, forced to pick it up is Tucker, still scrambling around looking for someone to throw it to. He'll lose the ball from behind. Auburn will pick it up, and the play will be blown dead from there. So for the first time tonight, the point after attempt will not be good for Federal Way, and the score remains 36-0, 2:07 left to go in the first half.
I think you're looking at a good chance that Federal Way is going to continue their streak and score at least 40 games or 40 points in every game this season. They've done it so far, and it looks like they might be able to continue it tonight. And their last regular season game comes up next week. They play Curtis, which is an SPSL South Division matchup. Again, this one, 2 SPSL teams, but Auburn out of the North Division, Federal Way out of the South Division, so it's not going to count against their league record.
And if there was any fear of Federal Way overlooking this game and looking forward to Curtis, I think that fear has most definitely been erased. 36-0. The most points they've scored this year was against Puyallup in week 5. They had 63 against the Vikings then, and this has just been a first half that they've completely controlled. And the injury to Harold Lee certainly limiting in a very big way what Auburn is able to do on offense and on defense.
And it's tough to blame Auburn for this because Federal Way is so good. But you look at the first drive of the game when Auburn got the ball first, a chance to create some momentum. They had a 3-and-out. They couldn't gain a yard, and that really set the tone for the rest of the game. Took the crowd out of the game, at least for sure. We see a lot of students in front of us aren't even watching the action anymore.
Kobe Craig, the beefy kicker, sends it off. Taking on a hop at the 10-yard line. The Trojans will bring it out, and some room to go for Auburn. A lick laid by Marcel Morris. With the ball taken out near the 40-yard line by Jacob Sloan. And Auburn with exactly 2 minutes to go. They have 2 timeouts. Will try to erase that goose egg off the scoreboard and get their first points of the game.
The tough thing is, as hard as it's been for them to gain yards in the running game, the passing game hasn't done anything either. In fact, the only completed pass they've had tonight is a pass to the other team, an interception to Delando Tucker.
Jacob Waldo was in the backfield. Now it's Muau who goes in motion. 1st and 10 from the 39-yard line. Atkinson under pressure. And boy, he just had to do a bit of a shovel pass to get rid of it at the last second. Hot under pursuit. And multiple Eagles in there to help get that pass off right away.
Tried to fling it off to Muau. Had Muau been there to make the catch, that actually would have been a pretty smart play. Atkinson was a nifty pass to throw it that way as he was running towards the sideline. But lucky that one also was not picked off because there were some Federal Way defenders in the area.
JT Tiali was also in there. And Tiali, 6'3", 295 pounds. Not the guy you want hot on your tracks. 2nd and 10 after the incompletion. 1:55 to go. Atkinson, another pass attempt, and it is intercepted. The second interception. And it's Tucker who comes up with it. Tucker trying to go to the near side. Now cutting back. He's still up on his feet. Loses the ball. And could Auburn get this back? At first glance, it looked to be that way. And the Trojans will get it back. So not often you get 2 turnovers in one play. But that's what we got right there. And the Trojans will have first down.
Obviously, with a 36-0 lead, the fumble is not a big deal for Federal Way, but with Delando Tucker at that point, with all that shiftiness moving around, you almost just want to see him get down. Let's let the offense come back out on the field because Federal Way has a chance to go up over 40 points, and we have an injured player again here now on the far sideline. Looks like another Auburn player is down as the rain begins to fall here tonight.
On the very, very far sideline at about the 28-yard line, and no better indication than looking up in the lights and seeing the rain start to come down. We talked about it, I think, probably through the first 6 weeks of the season, saying what great weather we've had so far this fall. And we've had to pay for it, and last week and this week as well. I know you called a game last night, and things got a little soggy out there.
Well, last night it was Kent Ridge going up against Jefferson, and there was a big strike of lightning. They had a 30-minute lightning delay, and it was coming down hard. This is nothing compared to what it was last night. Steady rain, but obviously we'll see. It's just started. Hopefully it'll let up a little bit soon. But hopefully also this player down on the far sideline, we haven't been able to see a number, is doing all right.
Auburn has been hit hard by the injuries tonight. If you're just joining us, 36-0 our score. Federal Way on top of Auburn. 1:43 left to go in the first half. The big story as far as going beyond what has happened on the field would be the Harold Lee injury. The top skill player for Auburn having to be taken off by an ambulance, and we had about a 20-minute play stoppage as he was being attended to. The good sign was as he was coming off on the stretcher, he waved up towards the fans. And we just hope everything is okay with Lee, who's not only a very good football player, but basketball is his main sport. And we also had Leroy Arnold being a bit slow to get off for the Trojans, and now the third injury we've seen for Auburn over there on the far sideline.
You mentioned, Chris, that it had been a long first half. Really, it's been a long second quarter. The first quarter seemed to go by lickety-split. 9-0 was the score, but here 27-0 the score in the second quarter, and we still have 1:43 to go. 3 injuries we've seen. Obviously, the Harold Lee injury was the one that took up most of the time. We also saw Leroy Arnold go down. And now another Auburn player down on the far sideline. We have not been able to see a number yet.
A reminder, Play On Sports, not only your destination for Friday night football action, but also the place for the most comprehensive coverage of high school playoff and championship events and all sports from across the country. PlayOnSports.com, high school sports lives here.
Luckily for the fans here tonight, this is a stadium that does have a roof overhead. Last week at WIAA game, it was O'Day and Eastside Catholic over at West Seattle Stadium, and the Eastside Catholic fans were drenched. There was no roof over that sideline, but both sides here tonight have the privilege of being undercover, so only the players, the cheerleaders, the coaching staff, and the support staff on the sideline in the elements tonight.
And the rain consistently coming down, but as you mentioned, just a mist compared to what it was like last night. And right now, I think we will take another timeout here with the injury, as the Auburn player is still being attended to over on the far sideline. We will take a timeout ourselves. 1:43 remaining in the first half, 36-0. Federal Way leading Auburn. You're watching the Federal Way Eagles and the Auburn Trojans on PlayOnSports.com.
one match away from immortality.
This is a total team effort.
We're gonna come at you.
One shot at this.
Welcome back to Auburn Memorial Stadium along with Jason Schwartz. Chris King here with you, and something you don't see too often, and it's an unfortunate event when it has to happen. We have our second injury, and boy, just awful luck here tonight in the sense that this is the second Auburn player that has had to be taken off by ambulance. And with that, we are going straight into halftime. There was a minute 43 left to go in the second quarter. But right now we are going straight into halftime as the injured player, and the first one was Harold Lee, and haven't been able to see who this second player is over on the far side. Haven't been able to identify which Auburn player it is. But again, Jason, hopefully everything is okay. This has just been a real awful night as far as injuries go.
And for Auburn, you look over at the scoreboard now, you see 20 minutes coming off the clock for halftime, and you realize, again, it's homecoming. It's also senior night. And I think it's going to be tough for a lot of people up here to feel happy about that, to celebrate, because you've got at least one senior down and not here anymore, a guy who's been such a big part of this program. But interesting also now to see the 143 left in that second quarter. And I saw this last night after that lightning delay over the game at Federal Way Memorial Stadium, Kent Ridge and Jefferson. What they're going to do here is they're going to come back after the halftime period. They'll play that 143. Then they're going to take a break, kind of like a quarter break. Both teams back to their sidelines. And then the second half will kick off. So this is halftime now. And we're going to get a minute of 43 extra here as we move on to the second half after this halftime break.
Well, we will take a timeout ourselves here at halftime. Federal Way leading Auburn 36-0. You are watching the Federal Way Eagles and the Auburn Trojans on PlayOnSports.com.
We can get a player up here.
Oh, that's good stuff.
All right, perfect. Prepare a Wiley Ballard graphic.
Do you want me to start the stream?
Start the stream. Camera 3. Beautiful. We're coming in on 1. For more information on how your school can join the Play on School broadcast program, go to playonsports.com/SBP.
one match away from immortality.
This is a total team effort.
We're gonna come at you.
One shot.
Welcome back to Auburn Memorial Stadium here at halftime, along with Jason Schwartz, Chris King with you, 36-0. Our halftime scores, the 1992 football team being honored on the field right now for Auburn High School. And now we'll take a look back at the first half and how everything went down. And unfortunately, the thing that really stands out, which ended the first half, and also we saw in the beginning of the second quarter as well, were the injuries, and we've had to have two players be taken off in ambulances here for Auburn. And looking back, and we saw Harold Lee, and then also I know you were down there, Jason, and saw who that second player was who was taken off.
Briar Atkinson, the starting quarterback for Auburn, and to lose Atkinson and also Harold Lee, the two biggest pieces of this offense. And quarterback, even if Atkinson doesn't do all that much in terms of throwing the football, it's still your leader on offense. To lose him as well, really can't see how this night could have started any worse for Auburn here tonight.
And taking it back, to look to see how the scoring happened. The first points in the game actually came off a safety. A high snap on the punt attempt for Auburn went back in the end zone, 2-0 in favor of Federal Way. Then Chico McClatcher tore off his one and only touchdown of the game, a 44-yard run, made it 9-0. And then Zeke McNeil, who missed last week, well, he's back this week and in a big way, a 92-yarder. The very first play of the second quarter made it 16-0. McNeil added a 21-yard touchdown on the next drive, 23-0 at that point. And Rod Jones, an 8-yard touchdown run, 30-0. And Zeke McNeil, his third touchdown of the night, a 46-yarder with 2:08 left to play in the first half, giving Federal Way the 36-0 lead. And for Auburn, Jason, we saw them have the ball twice inside the red zone of Federal Way, but neither time were they able to get any points out of it.
And it's tough for Auburn because when they came into this game, Coach Elliott, head coach of the Auburn Trojans, he wanted to be a ball control offense, and that has not been at all what they've been here tonight. They've turned the ball over a couple of times, 3 times, once on a fumble, 2 interceptions, and they have picked up, what, 1 first down they picked up in that first half. I think we counted just 1, that's all, and it came late too. Took them a while to even get positive yardage, and that's how tough it's been for Auburn. And add salt to the wound here, the cheerleaders have made this big sign for them to run out and break as they try to run through, and most of the players didn't recognize it. They ran to the right of the cheerleaders, and then finally a couple went in and broke up that sign for the cheerleaders. And the rain coming down too. It's just a tough night here. What time is it now? We're coming on 9 o'clock here. This is a 7 o'clock start time this game. And we've still got 1:43 seconds to play, don't forget, in that second quarter. They called halftime, but there was still 1:43 on the clock, so they're going to play that 1:43 seconds, and then they'll take a break, just a quick quarter break, and start the second half.
Both teams back out on the field. We'll take a quick break ourselves. When we come back, all the second half action. 36-0, the Eagles up on the Trojans. You're watching Federal Way at Auburn on PlayOnSports.com.
We can get a player up here.
Oh, that's good stuff.
All right, perfect. Prepare a Wiley Ballard graphic.
Do you want me to start the stream?
Start the stream. Camera 3. Beautiful. We're coming in on 1. For more information on how your school can join the Play on School broadcast program, go to playonsports.com/SBP.
And welcome back, everybody, to Auburn Memorial Stadium as we get ready to start the final minute 43 of the second quarter and then the second half of play. Federal Way leading 36-0 alongside Chris King. Jason Schwartz here with you. A game that has been ugly so far and been unfortunate because of the two injuries we've seen to Harold Lee and Briar Atkinson. But Auburn, I guess the one thing they're trying to prevent is having that running clock in the second half, so they need to keep Federal Way under 40 points as we continue on here. We want to remind you that Play On Sports is on Facebook and Twitter, giving you news and information and links to great highlights. Follow us at Play On Sports on both Facebook and Twitter. You can also access thousands of live and on-demand games on YouTube at youtube.com/PlayOnNetwork. Keep up with all the high school action every week from your destination for high school sports. PlayOnSports.com. So the team's coming back out here now, and the final play was that injury to Briar Atkinson. Remember, it was an interception by Chico McClatcher, and then McClatcher, or excuse me, not Chico McClatcher, Delando Tucker, and then Delando Tucker, in his attempt to try to move the ball down the field and get into the end zone, fumbled the football, and it was recovered again by the Auburn Trojans. So Auburn's going to start with a football here, 1st and 10 from the 33-yard line.
And a reminder, there's a minute 43 left to go. It says the third quarter, but they called halftime early with the injury to Atkinson. So a minute 43 before they start the third quarter, I guess over again.
So backup quarterback Nick Katz, a sophomore. He plays now at the quarterback position, takes the snap, and they're going to give the ball to Hagans, who is dragged down in the backfield. The tackle, Albert Havili, for loss. And I think Auburn here might be satisfied with having this clock run and taking this to our halftime as we get ready to end the second quarter.
We'll see if the rain becomes a factor at all, Jason. We mentioned it when it first started to come down, which was right before the injury to Atkinson, and it's been coming down just as hard, if not a little bit harder, from that point on throughout the entire 20-minute halftime.
It's becoming a factor for the cheerleaders, a lot of them looking very cold down there on the sideline as they look out on the field. Long game so far. Here's another handoff. This will go to Hagans again. He's trying to move forward. He will get positive yardage, but taken down after a gain of maybe 3, at the most 4 on the play.
And with the loss of Atkinson, the quarterback, but of Harold Lee, who came out injured as well, it will fall to Hagan, really. We talked about it before, but Hagan, kind of the guy who will have to step up in that role and try to get some yards picked up here for Auburn.
And we mentioned a couple times in the first half that Briar Atkinson was the only junior starter on this offense. Well, now Katz, the sophomore, he's now the only sophomore out there. Everyone else seniors. Everybody else 2 years older than Katz as he takes the snap. And he fumbles the snap. It's on the ground. He's able to pick it up. And he's going to be dragged down in the backfield. The tackle there for number 19, Brandon Warren. And that will bring an end to our second quarter as the clock runs. And Federal Way not going to do anything to stop the clock here. So loss of 6 yards on the play. Clock reads zeros across, and now we have come to halftime. 36-0 Federal Way at the half as we get ready to start the third quarter of play. So both teams will head to the sideline, and then they'll get ready to kick it off. Federal Way is going to get the ball to start the second half. And let's take a quick break here. It's halftime, but don't go anywhere. We'll be right back for the start of the third quarter from Auburn Memorial Stadium. Federal Way 36 and Auburn nothing. Getting ready to start the third quarter of play as Auburn gets set to kick this one away, and this will be the first kickoff for Auburn here in the game. And again, we're already 5 minutes after 9 o'clock here, and this one started at 7 o'clock 36-0 Federal Way. And we mentioned before the WIAA instituting that runoff rule on the clock. Well, if a team is leading by 40 or more in the second half, they're going to have the running clock here. So Federal Way scores, we might see a very quick second half. Here's a little kick there. It's going to be taken by Zeke McNeil at the 30. He's across the 40. Look at that shiftiness. Now back to the 40. He's going to be taken down. It is a flag away from the play. McNeil dragged out on the sideline. Again, the referees here, part of their jobs now, it's not only to officiate the game, but also to protect these players, because to see 2 players taken off in an ambulance in one game, nobody wants to see that.
No, a real tough sight that we've seen here tonight with those 2 injured players for Auburn. And looking at the play there for McNeil, just so hard to bring down. You talked about his shiftiness, but his strength as well. It's almost like it was a wrestling match where they're from the standing position, and that's how he finally got brought down, was just being forced backwards, because he wasn't even brought down. And we'll see what this flag is.
It's going to be holding on Federal Way, so that's going to bring them back. And it's almost surprising we don't see more holding penalties on Federal Way, considering how long during the play the runners are able to stay alive, and that really creates possibilities for more holding penalties from some of the players in the other parts of the field. So here comes Evan Elliott. Elliott, the quarterback leading this team, has not thrown an interception this year. 16 touchdown passes, does not have one tonight. He is going to keep the ball himself and be wrapped up after a gain of maybe 2 yards on the play. Faked the handoff to Rod Jones Jr. and went to the outside, gain of 2.
Demontre McNeely with the tackle. And I'm trying to think, Jason, is that the first time that we've seen Elliott keep it for himself tonight?
I think it is. Elliott, a few times we've thought that he's kept it himself, but usually giving the ball away. So Elliott ready to take the snap, and this time he's going to take it himself again. Going up the middle, he's got positive yardage almost to the 40-yard line before he's taken down. One thing we might see Federal Way do here, and again, it's not yet a running clock because they're not leading by 40 points, but they definitely seem to, in these first 2 plays, be playing a little more conservatively. In a game earlier this year when they were playing Puyallup with the running clock in the 3rd quarter, they held the ball from over 8 minutes left in the 3rd quarter to under 8 minutes to go in the 4th quarter. So this offense, even with their quick strike ability, does have the chance and the ability to keep the ball for long periods of time. And you see they're not in any hurry to get the snap off here. Elliott with McClatcher in the backfield, sends a man in motion. Elliott looking to throw, has time, now rolls to the right. He's going to run with it, and he's got yardage for the first down and more, almost to the 50-yard line before he is taken down. That's Mizuguchi coming on to get the tackle.
For Elliott's sake, the first thing I thought once he got that first down is just slide. Put your legs down and try to avoid the hit, with just what bad luck we've had in this game with injuries. We're fortunate to see him pop up, and the Federal Way not in any rush, as you mentioned, letting that play clock go down before they run a play.
Elliott with Afua in the backfield. Haven't seen Afua on offense all that much. Going to give the ball off. Who's got it? A player wrestled down, and that was Chico McClatcher on the run. Gets it across the 50. Taken down, a gain of 5. It'll bring up 2nd and 5. Under 10 minutes to play now in the 3rd quarter. 9:42 showing on the clock as it continues to run. And the rain, I think, coming down just a little bit harder now as we look across the field at those lights, and that's always the best way to check the rain. We see it coming down. The rain a little more dense now. Elliott with McNeil in motion, takes the snap, gives it to McClatcher. He's up the middle and he's wrapped up. Nice tackle there. Tackle again. For this time, it's number 23 on the tackle. That's the middle linebacker, Velasco. First time we've called his name tonight. So a 2-yard gain. That's going to bring up 3rd down. 3rd down, and looks like just 3 yards to go. 3rd and 3 from the Auburn 44-yard line. And again, this Federal Way offense taking their time. Elliott from the pistol with Afua behind him. McClatcher to his right. He goes in motion. They're going to give the ball to Afua. He pounds it up the middle past the 40, and enough for the first down. So Afua getting the football. And 1st and 10 for Federal Way.
Oh boy, Eric Afua is a load. The junior, 5'10", but 255 pounds. Talk about a low center of gravity as he just plowed through for those 3 yards. Beefy might be a good way to put it.
1st and 10, Federal Way again. They are taking their time. Funny to see with Federal Way, and I've seen them a couple times, that so many of their players on offense have those armbands with the plays. Here's McNeil with room on the right side. He's going down the field. 1 man to beat. There's a flag down. McNeil is going to be hit hard and taken down inside the 10. And again, a flag down in the middle of the field near the 20-yard line. But it's funny when Federal Way goes to change the play, how many of their players get up, look over at the sideline, and check those armbands. Usually it's just the quarterback who's got one of those on, but Federal Way, they give them to all of their playmakers. And it looks like from the way the teams are moving that this one's coming back.
For a moment you thought there, Jason, as it's a holding penalty on Federal Way, that McNeil might be on his way for his 4th touchdown. Missing last week, but coming back here with 3 touchdowns. 3 of the touchdowns for Federal Way tonight.
Certainly McNeil getting 4 touchdowns. He's a guy you would expect that from, but to bring up Harold Lee again, he had that big game. 333 yards against Tahoma when he scored 5 touchdowns, 2 of them interception returns, a punt return touchdown, and a couple offensive touchdowns as well, but 333 total yards. And again, Harold Lee, I think the story tonight, because that took Auburn out of the game so early, was taken out on a big hit on a kickoff return by Winston Avili. They had to bring the ambulance out. Again, Harold Lee was moving both his legs and his arms, which is good. Now, as far as Briar Atkinson on the far sideline when he was hurt, it was tough to see whether he was moving at all. Snap to Evan Elliott. He juggles the snap. It's down on the ground, and it looks like Eric Afua was able to dive on it, and Federal Way is going to retain possession.
I think for the first time there, Jason, we really see the rain become a factor. That slipped out of his fingers on the snap. It continues to come down here. Unfortunately, for Federal Way, for their perspective, only a 2-yard loss there.
2nd and 12 from the 31-yard line. Again, no running clock, but it might as well be one because Federal Way is just running the football, and every play they've run so far has kept the clock moving. 7.5 to go, 3rd quarter. Elliott takes the snap. McClatcher was the man in motion. Elliott gives it to McNeil. Right side's got room for the first down and more to the 10-yard line. Inside the 10, taken down. No flag this time. And Zeke McNeil, what a runner, as he's able to get it inside the 10. Almost the exact same run we saw from him that was taken back. He's able to get it to the same spot.
Awfully impressive is McNeil. An explosiveness right as he gets the ball. And just a tough guy to bring down, as we've seen time after time here tonight.
This team's leading rusher and scorer, not only tonight, but all season long. Zeke McNeil wearing number 5, the senior. Is McClatcher again in motion. Elliott's going to give the ball off to Rod Jones Jr. He's met at the line. A hard hit there. The hit coming from Katori White, it appeared. Also, Brendan Greer laying the hit on, the duo tackle as they take him down. So it's now 2nd and goal to go from the 7-yard line. 6:40 to play in the 3rd quarter. McNeil with Elliott in the backfield. Here comes McClatcher. They're going to give it to McClatcher. He comes near side trying to turn the corner, and he almost gets in out of bounds at the 1-yard line. I thought with his speed he might be able to just sneak that ball in over the pylon, but good job of coverage there. The man on defense, Danny Velasco, was able to chase him down and move him out of bounds before he got into the end zone. But now it's a 3rd and goal from the 1-yard line. So many weapons for Federal Way to run with here, so close to the end zone.
Muau there as well on defense for Auburn, just to eliminate that corner. I was with you. I thought he might be able to get a small sliver and get in, but they're knocking on the door.
So Elliott this time, for the first time, we're going to see him go under center as Federal Way goes with more of a goal line offense. McClatcher and Jones in the backfield. Elliott takes the snap, gives the handoff to Jones, and Jones into the end zone for the touchdown. Rod Jones Jr., the 1-yard run, his 2nd touchdown run of the night. Elliott gave it to Jones, then faked the pitch outside to McClatcher. And Jones had it the whole way, got it across the goal line into the end zone, and it is now 42-0. And we may see the running clock start here just after the kickoff now.
Well, and for Federal Way, that's exactly what they wanted, a long drive. They kept it on the ground exclusively, ate up a lot of clock, and ended with the touchdown to give them the 40-plus point lead. So now they have scored 42 points. Their previous low of the year was 41. So now, with that point after attempt, good 43 points. So more of the same on offense from Federal Way here tonight.
43-0 Federal Way. And Federal Way looking like they are going to improve to 8-0 this season, while Auburn will suffer their first loss. And I know it's early to say that here. We're only in the third quarter, but that's the reality we're looking at with Auburn. Their 6-game winning streak in danger. They may fall to 6-2, and Auburn trying to keep pace with Kentwood atop the SPSL North. And an Auburn loss here tonight all but seals the deal for Kentwood to win the SPSL North.
And for Federal Way here, ranked number 2 in the state. In 4A, Skyline number 1. Skyline in a close game tonight with Issaquah. They were up by 7 was the last we heard, but don't have a score to pass along as of right now. This game, of course, with the 2 injury timeouts, with 2 players being taken off by ambulance and the delays with that. A later go of it here. So things a little more advanced in the other games that have started at 7 o'clock tonight across not only the SPSL and the Puget Sound area, but across the state.
And I believe the head official just made the announcement up to the press box and to the stands that after this kickoff, the running clock will be in effect. So again, you're going to see the clock start to move a lot quicker here. And this game, which saw a marathon second quarter and first half, is going to come to an end a lot sooner than you might expect with that running clock. It really makes a big, big difference. Kobe Craig sets the ball up on the tee to kick it away. Darnell Hagen's back deep to return, along with Muau. Also back to return. Looks like number 25, Keo Buchanan. The kick is going to go out of bounds from Kobe Craig, though, and that's going to be a flag, illegal procedure, but the clock runs. 6:15 and counting left in this game, and Auburn's going to start with the ball at very good field position up at the 35-yard line.
Week 8 here, only one more week of the regular season. Auburn will wrap things up next week against Auburn Riverside. And we talked about it before, Federal Way with that matchup against Curtis, the team in second place right now in their division. Only one loss on the year for Curtis.
You just have a hard time imagining any team, even though Curtis is a good football team, you have a hard time imagining any team here in the regular season beating Federal Way when you see the weapons that they have. So here's Katz out for his second drive. First of the third quarter, sends Muau in motion. Katz takes the snap. They're going to give it off. There's Greer running the football up ahead, and a good gain as Greer gets 9 yards and comes up close to a first down, I believe just shy of a first down, and it's going to be second down and short to go.
And you'd love to see Auburn here get something going on offense and erase that goose egg on the scoreboard. Came close twice. They were in the red zone on 2 different occasions in the first half, but especially with the sophomore quarterback Katz in now too, to see if he can get something going and lead his offense on a drive.
Katz bringing the offense to the line of scrimmage. And again, they go with this same formation. The empty backfield sends somebody in motion. Here comes Muau across. Again, they're going to give this one to Greer. He's up ahead, first down to the 50-yard line. So I think those are the best 2 consecutive plays we've seen run from Auburn all night tonight as they pick up the first down, and the ball spotted right at the 50.
Cyrus Stewart making the tackle, and looking at that Federal Way defense, a lot of numbers that we didn't see early on. A lot of their second string guys in right now on defense for the Eagles.
Now, Chris, it's tough. We don't have the stats from tonight's game right in front of us at our disposal, but has there been a passing yard tonight? I don't know that we have seen a completed pass tonight from either team. 1st and 10 from the 50-yard line. Here's the handoff in the backfield to Greer, and he is stuffed, taken down. And who was that with a hit? He's got his jersey number all scrunched up on the uniform. Looked like maybe Day Williams coming in to make the hit. It's going to be number 56, Robert Savusa. So now again, and you look down at the numbers you see on the Federal Way defense, a lot of unfamiliar numbers as you look at the guys who are now some of the second stringers coming in here to play. Katz ready to take this snap. Here comes Hagans in motion. Katz will give Hagans the ball. He comes on the right side. He's got room past the 40, and he's got a first down for the Auburn Trojans. A lot of the reason also why they might be moving the ball here is because of the fact that we're seeing Federal Way's second string defense on the field.
And going back to the play before that, Savusu made the tackle, only a sophomore coming in there. And in a blink of the eye, getting into the backfield to make the tackle for a loss.
Federal Way, the only city team ever to play in the Washington State tournament. They've done it 3 times. Twice in the 70s, trying to get back there this year. 2 minutes, 40 seconds remaining in the third quarter. Man coming in motion. Here's Katz with some confusion. He's got the ball himself, and he's going to be taken down. Percy Godfrey coming on to make the tackle, and a loss on the play, and a big one too. It's going to bring up 2nd and long. 2 minutes, 23 seconds left in this third quarter. Clock continues to run.
The rain coming down here makes it nice when you get to the end of the playoffs and you get deep into the state tournament, when you make it to the Tacoma Dome. It's nice to be inside at that point, and I love seeing football being played outside deep into late October and into November as well. Thanksgiving weekend, it's about the time you go into the Tacoma Dome, but some of these nights I feel like, oh boy, the Tacoma Dome would feel pretty good, but you're not dealing with this nice turf. You're dealing with that carpet there at the Dome.
Katz moving the ball up the middle. He's got good yardage there on the 2nd and 17. So almost gets the ball back to the original line of scrimmage. Minute 38 to play. Great to have you with us. Chris King, Jason Schwartz here with you. Friday Night Football on the WIAA Network, brought to you by PlayOnSports.com. Katz brings the Trojan offense to the line here. A minute 15 to play, third quarter, 3rd and 10. So he did get the ball back to the original line. Man comes in motion, and Katz is going to give it off. There's room on the left side, and close to a first down for Auburn is Dominique Rousseau. Rousseau very close to the first down yardage. In fact, he knocked the chain to the ground, and they are going to give Auburn the first down. So another first down for the Trojans.
Good speed we see there from Rousseau. Is only comes in at 135 pounds, so maybe not a guy who's going to run over you, but that time he got to the outside and able to flex off his wheels.
You legitimately have players on this Federal Way defense who are more than twice the weight of Dominique Rousseau. 25 seconds to play in the third quarter. This will probably be the final play of the third quarter. Katz under center. Here comes Hagans in motion. Katz is going to trip, and he's down back of the line of scrimmage, and that is going to do it for the third quarter here as the clock runs down. So Federal Way scores 1 touchdown in the quarter to bring the running clock into effect, and the clock runs down to zeros on the third quarter with the score Federal Way 43 and Auburn nothing. We'll take a quick break here. Come back for the fourth quarter of play here from Auburn Memorial Stadium. You're watching Auburn and Federal Way on the WIAA Network by Play On Sports.
We can get a player up here.
Oh, that's good stuff.
All right, perfect. Prepare a Wiley Ballard graphic.
Do you want me to start the stream?
Start the stream. Camera 3. Beautiful. We're coming in on 1. For more information on how your school can join the Play On School broadcast program, Go to playonsports.com/SBP.
Welcome back to Auburn Memorial Stadium along with Jason Schwartz. Chris King here with you. A night fully belonging to Federal Way here. 43-0, the Eagles lead the Trojans. And a tough night for Auburn. A slow start for them offensively, but you almost feel like you didn't get a full fair sample from them after that injury to Harold Lee, as he had to be taken off on an ambulance. And then at the very end of the first half, which became the end of the first half, they actually saved the last minute 45 of the second quarter till after halftime, because Briar Atkinson was injured as well for Auburn and had to be taken off by an ambulance. So the absolute worst thing that you could see in a high school football game, injuries to these young players, and you just hope everything is okay. Certainly our thoughts with both of those players that everything is okay. And setting up Federal Way certainly in firm control of the game before both of those injuries, but with two of the top players for Auburn out, that continued to be the case. 2nd and 14 for Auburn here as we see the reverse play, and snuffed out right away by Federal Way. The tackle coming in from Cyrus Stewart, the ball carrier Jacob Sloan. It was 2nd and 14. It will remain 3rd and long here. It will be just, well, no gain is where they'll put it back at the 31-yard line, so nothing there.
You mentioned not getting a good feel for the Auburn offense. I think one thing we can say, though, is even with Harold Lee on the field, they had a few drives. Auburn's offense wasn't able to move the ball at all. The one place you really miss Harold Lee is on special teams, his ability to bring back kick returns. That's Auburn's best play tonight, 80-yard kick return down to the 15 for Harold Lee.
No doubt about it. 3rd and 15. Katz drops back. The sophomore looking deep, has an open receiver, and the pass is dropped by William Jeffries for Auburn. Everything set up there perfectly for Auburn as Katz, the sophomore, did his job putting the pass in the hands of Jeffries and just couldn't quite reel it in.
Jeffries, a junior running back, not a receiver, but Jeffries has to be so disappointed. He's got some of his teammates and coaches patting him on the helmet. No one feels worse than he does in this building right now, because that was Auburn's best chance of the night. That would have been a touchdown had Jeffries been able to reel that one in.
A reminder, if you're just joining us, with a 40-plus point lead for Federal Way, we've had a running clock here since the halfway point of the 3rd quarter. 10-15 and counting. 4th and 14 for the Eagles. Katz drop back, looking, has another open receiver again. This time it's McNeely, and he overthrows the pass. And that will be a turnover on downs. Federal Way will take over.
Demontre McNeely, a big target there. He's got to get his hands up, do something, dive for the football, at least show that you're putting all the effort you can to try to get that. I know it was just slightly overthrown, but McNeely is a big guy. He's got to show his quarterback that he's doing everything he can to try to make that play.
McNeely and Shelton, the two tight ends, and two of the real cornerstones for that offense for Auburn. But when you take away a weapon like Lee and also your quarterback in Atkinson, it just makes it tougher when you have to spread things out even more on offense. Now 9:25 to go in the game. 1st and 10, Federal Way back out on the field. And we have a new quarterback out there in that spread pistol. Looks to be Peter Bistangdi. A little bit of a high snap, and the handoff goes to Percy Godfrey. We saw him playing some defense and now coming in and getting some carries on offense.
Bestandig is a guy who's had the chance to come out and play in late in games. Even when you've got Keenan Kern, who runs a lot of plays at quarterback, you've also got Evan Elliott, of course, but Bestandig with these big leads, they've gone to him late in the 4th quarter in most of their games. By the way, the rain also now is really lightened up. Now a very light mist. There's definitely still some moisture coming down, but not quite as hard as what we saw a little while ago.
Looking down at the track that is surrounding the field, certainly glistening as the puddles have piled up, but as you mentioned, just very light precipitation here. Only 2 yards on the carry by Godfrey. 2nd and 8. From their own 33-yard line. Fake the handoff. Bestandig will just have to take it for himself, and appeared to be a broken play and nothing there. Auburn all over it and dropping him for no gain.
Auburn trying to build some momentum at the end of this game. Again, they do still have one game left, and they've got the playoffs coming up too. But the feeling this team must have right now, this must feel like a season-ending game, the way this has gone.
Correction, that's James Black out there, the junior who's a running back. Is running thing is as the quarterback of the Eagles. 3rd and 7. A 1-yard gain on the last play. Black takes the high snap, hands it off. It's Trayvon Meadows who brings it out to the 39-yard line, or the 34, excuse me, but it's still 4th and long, and the Eagles will punt it, and this is a situation that we're not used to seeing for Federal Way.
This will be the first Federal Way punt, I believe, tonight. They might have had one very early. I think maybe their first possession they were forced to punt. Kobe Craig, who we've seen kick extra points, attempt a field goal, and kick off numerous times. He's the punter as well.
Both kickers attempted a field goal tonight, but neither of them were good. 6:30 left to go in the game. Snap to Craig, a bit of pressure coming, but a nice big boot as the fair catch is called, and it is dropped. It appeared the return man for the Trojans was able to get it down at the 39-yard line.
If you're going to call a fair catch there, you have to do everything you can to get under that ball, and looked like the returner came up just a little bit short, had to reach out for it. It's tough to catch punts. Guys make it look really easy. It's really hard to judge the flight of the ball. Also, with the strange rotations, sometimes it spirals, sometimes it's end over end. It can be very hard.
Keoba Cannon, the returner on the fumble, got an extra yard out of it. Brought it from the 39 to the 40. 5:50 remaining in the game. 1st and 10 from the 39, the Trojans looking to score for the first time tonight. And we have a new quarterback in the game for Auburn. It's Alec Dewing, another sophomore. So we've seen Nick Katz come in. Ryer Atkinson, one of the 2 players for Auburn, being taken off by an ambulance because of an injury in the first half. So the starting quarterback out, no gain on that play. So for Federal Way, this will go down as an impressive victory. One of, if not their most impressive wins of the year. 13 straight victories between these 2 teams coming into the game. Picking up a head of steam is William Jeffries. He's into Eagle territory before being forced out of bounds. A hard tackle coming in by Trayvon Meadows.
Mentioning impressive victories, Coach Moore told us that he felt like last week was their best so far against Spanaway Lake. They executed very well, and he feels like this team is getting better as the season goes along. Well, really, Federal Way, I know they've had penalties, but I think that's been the only problem for them so far. I can't imagine a better game. They've only turned the ball over once, and that was a Keenan Curran interception.
1st and 10 after the run. The 38-yard line of Federal Way. In motion is Russo. Going back and hot under pursuit. The pass will be caught, but out of bounds. Dewing couldn't get it off in time. Got it off in time, but couldn't get it in enough time to get the pass in bounds.
And the clock now about to reach 4 minutes. And again, once that clock runs, it moves fast. And already here down to the final third of this 4th quarter.
If you're just joining us, the first quarter rather close. 9-0 was the score, but at halftime, possession of this game was firmly in the hands of Federal Way. They were up 36-0. Scoring 1 touchdown here in the second half and inducing that running clock. Now 2nd and 10. A load of bodies up the middle, and someone's there to grab it and get a big run in the process. Ben Oservanza takes it to the 20-yard line, 18 yards on the carry, and another first down. Auburn marching.
And again, I don't know on that play if that was supposed to go to Oservanza. It looks like everyone is just in there not really knowing what they're doing or who's going to get the ball, and then someone just comes up to grab the football and run with it. Now, if that's the way it's planned, well, if it's planned confusion, then good, because I think it really messed the Federal Way lineup. not really the prettiest of plays.
In the backfield for a moment, Randy Campbell heading over to the right side. Going in motion here is Darrell Beck. Looking back, putting the pass up, and it is nearly intercepted. Going for that ball is Percy Godfrey, and doing his best job, Langston Thomas, the wide receiver, was more of a defender on that play.
And again, I think we have yet to see a passing yard tonight or passing completion tonight.
I'm trying to rack my mind back on that, and if there was one, there was one, two
Certainly
tops.
Auburn does not have a completion tonight. Keenan Curran threw a pass that got intercepted. We saw a couple passes intercepted by Federal Way.
2nd and 10. Back again, and he barely gets the pass off, and it's intercepted. Khalil Housey picks it off, and we have a flag coming down. And so if Federal Way hangs on to this, you just have to imagine at this point it's a formality to take a knee. The clock running, 1:50 left to go in the game.
Trying to think then Evan Elliott, a couple times I can recall him dropping back to pass. He had pressure in the backfield, had to roll out. He threw that one incompletion in the end zone. I really don't think we've had a completion. Is there one that you can think of?
Not one specifically as I rake my mind. I thought there might have been one in that second quarter, that very long second quarter, but I could be wrong. So the clock continues to run as they're figuring out the penalty. It will be 1st and 10 for Federal Way, so they will have the ball, but even by the time that they mark this off, they might only even have to take one knee, a 10-yard penalty against Federal Way. A reminder to stay with us after the game. We'll have our player of the game interview. And Zeke McNeil, we'll see here. I think he has our vote as the player of the game. I'm voting for you with that statement.
I concur.
Fair enough. 1st and 10, 40 seconds as the clock continues to roll here in this game. A game that will be an impressive statement for Federal Way. The undefeated Eagles taking on the 6-1 Trojans. And a knee by Federal Way. And that should be it. The game clock won't start up. And that will be the ball game here tonight as the last seconds tick off. 43-0 will be our final score. An awfully impressive night for Federal Way. We will take a timeout. When we come back, we'll have the PlayOnSports.com post-game show as Zeke McNeil will join us up here, and we'll give you a full recap of tonight's game. Again, the final score, Federal Way 43, Auburn nothing. We'll take a break and be back with more. You're watching Friday Night Football on PlayOnSports.com.
We can get a player up here.
Oh, that's good stuff.
All right, perfect. Prepare a Wiley Ballard graphic.
Do you want me to start the stream?
Start the stream. Camera 3. Beautiful. We're coming in on 1. For more information on how your school can join the Play on School broadcast program, go to playonsports.com/SBP.
Welcome back to Auburn Memorial Stadium along with Jason Shorts. Chris King here with you. Our final score tonight, Federal Way shutting out Auburn 43-0. And we'll have our player of the game coming up here shortly as we're grabbing him down on the field right now, Zeke McNeil, and taking a look back on how this game unfolded. It was just a 9-0 lead for Federal Way early on. After the first quarter, the first points was off a safety on a punt attempt. A high snap went over the head of Greer, the punter for Auburn, made it 2-0. Chico McClatcher, his one and only touchdown, made it 9-0. Then Zeke McNeil, his first of 3 touchdown runs, a 92-yarder. The first of 3, made it 16-0. The halftime score 36-0, and then 1 touchdown in the second half to induce the running clock, coming from Rod Jones Jr. to give us our score of 43-0. And again, we have to mention again about the injuries, and boy, just that our thoughts are with both players, Harold Lee and the quarterback Briar Atkinson, who were both taken off in an ambulance for Auburn in tonight's game. Really just the worst thing you can possibly see in a high school game.
And right now you've got the Auburn team and their head coach and coaching staff talking to them on the middle of the field. Gordon Elliott in his 11th year chatting with his team, and of course a tough night tonight, but the big story tonight, Federal Way, and just another victory. And now we're going to be joined by Zeke McNeil up here in the booth. Zeke, great to have you with us. Congratulations on another win, 8-0. You guys continue to roll. Things really haven't been interesting for you guys in any games this year. Does that affect you? Do you want to play a close game, or do you like it this way?
Yeah, we like the close games, but I mean, all of our games have been pretty interesting this year. I mean, no matter the level of competition. So.
Now for you tonight, a big night again, 3 touchdown runs, one 92-yarder, then a 46-yarder. You just get the feeling with not only yourself, but a lot of guys on your team that anytime you touch the ball, you have the ability to score, and I'm sure you feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of athletes on our team, a lot of speed. We can get the ball around pretty good. So, yeah, I mean, I just try to, you don't get the ball that much with this many athletes, so when you get it, you just got to make the most of it.
Well, you have certainly been taking advantage. Now, we mentioned this a few times, so we'd have to ask you about this. We know you went to Washington, D.C. last weekend, and
That's right.
You missed the game. And how was that trip to Washington?
It was good. It was great. It was a great opportunity. You know, I learned a lot about our nation and, you know, how we go about national security, and met a lot of real cool kids. Learned a lot about maybe a career choice I might want to do in the future, and it was pretty good, but I wish I could have been playing with them.
Well, you guys got the win too, and you know, looking forward as the rain continues to fall here tonight, looking forward, you got 1 game left against Curtis, trying to finish that regular season undefeated, and then the playoffs. You're looking forward to some of the big teams and big matchups you might have down the road?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Curtis, we've been waiting for them the whole year, so, and I know they're going to come out hitting, they're going to come out hard, and we just got to stay focused and practice and be ready for that game.
Well, Zeke, thanks so much for joining us,
and
I'm glad you enjoyed your trip to Washington. I know you're looking forward to a career after football, but hopefully that football career goes on for quite some time here.
I hope so.
All right, that's Zeke
Thank
McNeil
you.
joining us here up in the booth on the WIAA network. Zeke McNeil, 3 touchdowns tonight, a run of 92 yards, 21 yards, and 46 yards as Federal Way comes away with the 43-0 win. And Zeke McNeil is our player of the game here on the PlayOnSports.com post-game show. That's going to do it for us here tonight from Auburn Memorial Stadium as Federal Way improves to 8-0. They drop Auburn to 6-2. Federal Way, the Eagles, coming away with the 43-0 win, and the final game of the regular season for both these schools will be next week. And don't forget to join the WIAA network next weekend for more high school playoff action here, Friday night football from the state of Washington. More games as we get ready for the postseason. Great to have you with us tonight. For Chris King and our staff here, I'm Jason Schwartz. So long, everybody. We'll talk to you again next week.
One match away from immortality.
This is a total team effort.
We're gonna come at you.
One shot.